Which NHL rookies have gotten off to the hottest start in the 2025-26 season? Today, we're listing through all of them in a top 10 ranking.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I'm your host, Sebastian High, the USA scout over at Elite Prospects. And on today's show, we're not looking at draft eligibles. We've been doing a bit of that already this week. Instead, we're taking a glance at the NHL as the season is well and truly underway. Teams have played between 3 and 5 games here so far this season. I think a couple teams have even already gotten into 6 matches. And that's enough of a small, but albeit sufficient sample size to at least look at which rookies across the National Hockey League have hit the ground running. And trust me, there have been quite a few that have. And on today's show, we'll be highlighting them in a top 10 fashion. But we're not going to be counting down. We're going to be counting from 1 all the way up through 10 because I think that the rankings at this stage are only going to keep shifting on a week-to-week basis. So no need for all the suspense of a true countdown. But on today's episode, we're going to be looking at a number of fascinating talents ranging from dynamic offensive defensemen like Zeev Buium to dynamic forwards like Ivan Demidov and some really solid players that have been extremely reliable in their minutes as well, whether it be forwards or defensemen. There's a complete variety of profiles and styles of players that have hit the ground running here early on in the campaign. So we're going to platform these players, give them shout outs, and kind of dig into why they have been so successful here early in the season and very early in their NHL careers. A couple of them have already gotten into a few NHL games at the tail end of last season, but for most of these guys, they came into the season with less than 10 games of total experience at the National Hockey League level. So to be as impressive as they have been so far this season is certainly something of note. But before we dive into the show here, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. So let's get things started here at number 1 of our top 10 rankings. And you have to look no further than the Minnesota Wild for this one because Zeev Buium has been tremendous here in the first 2 games of his sample size in the regular season in the National Hockey League. He does have a -6 rating, which I'm sure some people are going to point at as something that's not very good, but 1 goal and 5 points in 4 games from the blue line to start his career while playing upwards of 20 minutes and all but one of his starts so far this season, even logged 24-39 in a loss against the Columbus Blue Jackets. This guy has been doing everything for the Minnesota Wild in the offensive zone in particular. He's quarterbacking the first power play unit. He's been so dynamic in transition, and his intelligence in terms of processing plays at pace, solving problems quickly, getting the puck to a better place than where he receives it time and time again is what makes him so special. He's not a perfect player, and he's certainly going to still have some growing pains, I think, as well as that minus rating kind of signifies. He has been on the ice for a lot of goals against, and some of those have also been off of direct mistakes that he's made or missed reads or just some of these small details that you get punished for in the National Hockey League. But the thing that I've learned from watching Zeev Buium for about 3 years now through junior hockey and the NCAA and now the National Hockey League, he's a very, very quick learner. It does not take him many lessons to internalize his mistakes and grow from them. So I think he's only going to get better as the year wears on, and that dynamic offense from the blue line, who knows? They might have another defenseman taking a run at the Calder, second time in 3 years after Brock Faber just barely missed out to Connor Bedard there just over a year ago. But Buium is the next special thing on the back end in Minnesota. And I think that him and Faber are a long-term disgusting pair to kind of have together against top opposition in the National Hockey League, and also in terms of guys that could really facilitate things for Kirill Kaprizov and the rest of the forward core there in the state of hockey. Moving on, at number 2, we have one of my biggest surprises so far this season, and that is Beckett Sennecke of the Anaheim Ducks, the big 6'4", 194-pound right shot winger, drafted 3rd overall to his shock more than anybody else's in the 2024 NHL draft there to the Anaheim Ducks. And he's been handed a top-line role here early in the season. He's been playing the lowest ice time he's had so far this year has been 17:24, and he's played as much as 19:14 in an OT win against the San Jose Sharks. And I do not think that he's going to get sent back to junior hockey now. I was really expecting him to be getting at least one more season with the Oshawa Generals, but I have a very different opinion now, I think, after seeing the ease with which he's been playing down low in the offensive zone, getting open, getting pucks to the blue paint, and just being lethal as a finisher as well in those spaces. He has 2 goals and 2 assists in those 4 games. A goal and assist came in that big game against the Sharks. That was a 7-6 thriller. So lots of goals going in that game, but he got on the score sheet in each of his first 3 NHL games, and I think that he's a player that has all the handling skill, all the creativity and dynamism and playmaking flash and finishing skill to make teams pay when they give him too much space in the offensive zone. We're definitely seeing that early on this season, that teams have underestimated him a little bit too much and given him a little bit too much space and time. And he has really reveled in that. We're going to see how he's able to adapt when teams are pre-scouting him and really locking down that space around him. But with his ankle breaking tendencies and ability to create space out of nothing, I think that he's going to have himself a successful rookie season. Do I think that he's going to keep up this point pace all year long? No. I think that a 40-point, 50-point rookie season would be more than a great success for his entry into the league, especially for a player that is still adapting a little bit to the size that he's playing at and still looks a little bit wonky on his feet at times. But I think he's just been fantastic, and he has blown my personal expectations out of the water here already in his 4-game stint. And if for some reason they do decide to send him back to Oshawa after his 9-game trial, so be it, but he's going to be one of the most dominant players in the CHL if that does happen. Then to wrap up this first segment, at number 3 in our top 10 hottest starts for NHL rookies, we have the reigning first overall draft pick in Matthew Schaefer, playing absolutely obscenely large minutes with the New York Islanders. He's already up to a goal and 4 points in 4 games, but it's the ice time. Like, he's played 17 minutes in 2 games, and the other 2 games, he's played 26. So he's either getting triple shifted or he's playing second pairing. There's kind of no in between with kind of, I guess, how they're balancing his ice time at the moment. But he has just been such a revelation this season. The composure, the maturity, the intelligence, the pace, everything is just NHL. It's above average for the NHL level. And this is not just by a wide margin the youngest player in the league this season. He's a September 5th birthday. He's just 10 days off, a week and a half off from being eligible for next June's draft. Very, very close. And on top of that, he hadn't gotten into a single competitive game in 2025 because he broke his collarbone at the World Junior Championship. So to go from playing 17 OHL games in his draft year season, earning that first overall selection, and deservedly so in my opinion, and then coming into the NHL to a flying start on a team that hasn't had the most dynamic skill in their roster the last few seasons, and really just injecting them with excitement on every single shift, that is something to really, really hold as special. And I think that Matthew Schaefer truly is a special talent. If we're talking NHL player comps, Miro Heiskanen's the one that has always come up internally at Elite Prospects for us in our discussions as a similar style of player in terms of the way they move, the way that they're able to create advantages in all three zones, offensively, defensively, sparking the breakout, finishing chances in the offensive zone, distributing pucks in the power play while not maybe being like the insane, like activating, dynamic playmaking style of guys like Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes and Lane Hutson, if you want to throw him in that mix as well. But Matthew Schaefer truly is a cornerstone to build a team around, and the Islanders could not be more fortunate to have won the lottery in his draft year. I think he's a fantastic fit there on Long Island. But in the next segment, we have a couple more dynamic talents to talk about, including the Montreal Canadiens phenom Ivan Demidov. But first, a quick message from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer that you do not want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if your first bet hits. That's right. You just have to pick a swing, put down $5, and if it connects, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the entire app. I love using FanDuel because it gives me every single choice possible on what I want to take my swings on, whether it be parlays or game props, player props, or even following the games live as they are unfolding in front of my eyes. The choice truly is yours if you're using FanDuel. And genuinely, same game parlays are so much fun to kind of just combine multiple swings that you want to take into one in order to maximize your potential return. It's a whole bunch of fun and makes the action all the more exciting. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app right now to get started. All right, let's keep this episode rolling here as we're progressing on to players ranked 3 through 6 in our top 10 rankings, and we're kicking things off with number 93 of the Montreal Canadiens, the player that can get Bell Center fans out of their seats like basically no other on the team, which is saying something because, I mean, Lane Hutson, Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki all have a penchant for doing just that and exploding the building. But Ivan Demidov has just the sparkle. Every single puck touch is so deceptive and dynamic, and it just gets the fans itching to jump out of their seats. And he has not disappointed here early in the season. He hasn't been able to really leave a big dominant mark on every single game of the campaign so far, but through 5 games, he has a goal, 3 points, and 1 goal and 1 assist of that came against the Seattle Kraken and were instrumental to the Habs winning that game eventually 5-4 in overtime, thanks to a Caulfield overtime winner. But it was Ivan Demidov who scored the equalizer late in the third period with just under 2 minutes to go with the empty net. And it was truly, truly a beautiful thing to behold. He was able to take the puck along the half wall at the right circle, kind of rotate towards the middle of the ice, go for a quick little give and go with Patrick Laine, who found him again right in the mid to low slot. And then it is just a masterclass in manipulation. Just head up, revealing nothing with his body language, showing shot just slightly, freezing the goaltender and the defenders, and then pulling the puck back onto his backhand, outweighting the netminder, and just depositing it into the half-open net there at the end. And the celebration told the entire story. It was pure elation, like really pulling the monkey off the back in terms of goal scoring. And that passion, I think, is something that really resounds throughout the Montreal Canadiens organization here early in the season. There's so much excitement with this group of players, and Demidov is a massive part of that. He's going to have to still improve in terms of getting consistently involved at 5-on-5. He's definitely his most dynamic self when he has more space and time to work with, whether it be 6-on-4, 5-on-4, overtime. That's where he shines brightest. But the assist he got there against the Seattle Kraken showed what he can do at even strength as well. Driving down the right wing, really like selling Vince Dunn on trying to close him down on the boards, pulling it back, cutting back, and just hitting a wire of a pass to Alex Newhook at the back post to tip it in for a goal. That's what Demidov brings. He's just constantly deceiving with his body language and makes very, very quick shifts to then put a puck in an extremely dangerous position. That's why he still remains my personal Calder favorite here for this season. But there is a whole bunch of contention for that award this year. As we were discussing in the first segment, I think especially Zeev Buium and of course Matthew Schaefer have strong cases from the blue line, but Lane Hutson just barely won the Calder last year over Macklin Celebrini with a 66-point campaign. I think that Buium or Schaefer are going to have to not match that production, because I think they're both perhaps a little bit more refined on the defensive side of things than Hutson was last season, but they're going to have to score upwards of 55 points in order to really push Demidov, I think, for what I expect Demidov to deliver here as the year wears on. This guy could hit 60 points, 70 points, maybe if you're kind of pushing it with the Canadiens this season, especially if he gets more ice time and maybe even some first line deployment. If Slafkovsky still struggles to kind of put points on the board, I could see that happening. But he's a very interesting player to kind of keep an eye on here this season. But let's keep the ball rolling here as we have Sam Rinzel of the Chicago Blackhawks, who is just so much fun to watch. If you're a hockey fan and maybe not a coach, Rinzel has got to be one of the most electric defensemen to watch here coming into the league this season. 6'4", 190 pounds. He moves with tremendous fluidity. He has been directly at the cause of quite a few chances against and goals against this year. So the defensive side of the things, especially in terms of neutral zone risk taking, is far from perfect. I think he's a lot better against the cycle. He uses his big body, gets engaged physically. But it's in the offensive zone with the handling, the distribution, the playmaking skill, and the goal scoring as well. He's got a really, really good shot, and he showed that against the Montreal Canadiens, where he scored his first career goal in a game where he logged just 2 seconds shy of 26 minutes, and it was an absolute rifle, moving up into kind of like the edge of the mid slot and just rifling it top shelf over Samuel Montembeault's shoulder. A very, very pretty first NHL goal. Definitely a little bit more cinematic, perhaps, than Matthew Schaefer's first NHL goal, which, if you haven't seen, is one of the funniest goals for a first goal scored in a career that I've seen in a long time. Kind of just like was a curling rock, basically. Just like zooming towards the net and just like dropped onto his knees and poked the puck in. There was just a scrum in front of the net and just kind of like weed his way to his first NHL goal, which was just very entertaining. But Sam Rinzel's was just a rocket of a shot. But what Rinzel brings to the ice, it's dynamism on puck, a whole bunch of skill, and just versatility. He's become a really solid defensive player, especially if he's able to kind of balance out his risk-taking on puck in the neutral zone. I think that's going to really take a step as well. But he's definitely a guy that I have penned in as one of the best defensemen among rookies here this campaign. But he's got some other very good competition apart from the guys that we talked about there in the first segment, as Alexander Nikishin's been brilliant for the Carolina Hurricanes here to start his NHL career. He's the most pro-ready player among rookies this year because he's already been playing 4 full seasons at the professional level in the KHL, the last 3 with SKA St. Petersburg, the last 2 of them as their captain and best player night in, night out. He scored 17 goals in each of those seasons, had 56 points in 23-24, 46 points last season, and so far started his NHL career. He's got a point in every single game. He's a perfect 4 for 4, has 4 points in those games, one of them being a goal, and he's been kind of like eased into the NHL. He's not being given these 26-minute games. The Carolina Hurricanes are also a much better team overall than if you're talking about the New York Islanders or Chicago Blackhawks, for instance. But he's just been playing around 16 and a half minutes night in, night out, very, very consistently there. Third pairing, like higher end third pairing minutes for his deployment here to start his career. And of course, also helps that the Hurricanes already have a very strong blue line without him in the equation. But he's just another tool to have in the belt. And I think that his average time on ice is going to certainly climb over 20 minutes here as the year continues. He's got the frame, 6'4", 216 pounds, really physically engaged. He's got a booming shot from the point, really good distributor from the point as well in the offensive zone, whether it be even strength or on the man advantage. He can basically do it all. It's the versatility and adaptability with Nikishin that always leave me so impressed. And I think that he's only going to become more important here for the Hurricanes as the season progresses. But that wraps up this second segment here for us today. In the final one, we're going to go through players ranked number 7 through number 10. And we have one honorable mention to give a shout out to there at the end as well. But before we do that, a quick message from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening night games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be an absolute headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. I love that what you see is what you pay for. There's never any hidden fees at checkout. Plus, I could see exactly what my view looks like before I even bought the tickets with the in-app seat view feature. It just gives you peace of mind and know that there isn't going to be a massive pole in your way, blocking the view and ruining the experience. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. All right, let's wrap up the show here in the final segment, talking about some of the hottest starts among NHL rookies here this season. And it's difficult to get even this far into the video without giving a massive shout out to Jimmy Snuggerud of the St. Louis Blues, who's just been fantastic. He's also been getting some really good deployment here early on in the campaign, playing a couple games up on the top line at even strength. He certainly did against the Vancouver Canucks, where he scored 2 goals in that 5-2 victory. He's up to 2 goals and 3 points in 4 games to start the season in St. Louis. And he's a player that I've always just had so much respect for. He thinks the game very quickly. He's direct. He's intense. He's middle driven. He plays inside contact. He's good along the wall. He's a good finisher in tight. He can set players up with just beautiful, like thread the needle passes as well from the periphery. There isn't much that he can't do that you want a player in your middle six to bring to you night in, night out. And he already seems to be that player today rather than just a projection to become that at some point in the future. Of course, last season, he was the captain at the University of Minnesota, where he put up a ridiculous 51 points in 40 games, including 24 goals. He was his money for 20 goals in college hockey every single year he was there for the 3 seasons at Minnesota. And I think that he might even challenge for 20 goals here this season as an NHL rookie. Is he going to be in Calder contention? I think that there's just so much competition for that this season, but he's certainly a player that gets pucks on goal. He gets involved. You always notice him when he's on the ice. He's not one of these invisible guys that create very subtle advantages. Snuggerud does, though, by getting in your face and being uncomfortable to play against, and that's something I think that the Blues respect so mightily. It was also one of the reasons that they ended up making the somewhat questionable trade with the Montreal Canadiens in the offseason, sending Zachary Bolduc to the Habs in exchange for Logan Mailloux, which early returns have not been amazing on it, but of course there's still time for that to age. But Snuggerud and Jake Neighbors and Dalibor Dvorsky being in the reins here, in kind of coming through in the organization and really starting to pop off. I mean, Jake Neighbors has 4 goals in 4 games here to start the year as well. Makes that hit a little bit easier to swallow. So I think it's been really impressive so far for Snuggerud. Moving on, we're heading to the Detroit Red Wings with Axel Sandin-Pellikka on the blue line. One of my favorite players to have watched in the draft cycle in the last 3 or 4 years. He's just such a mobile, intelligent, dynamic offensive defenseman. And he has an average size frame, undersized for a defenseman. That's 6 feet, 185 pounds is the right shot. But the way he moves and gets around the ice, he hasn't logged a point here just yet for Detroit, but he's been a really big part of why they've gotten off to a 3-1 start, beating the Maple Leafs twice, and then following that up with a victory against the Florida Panthers. That is nothing to scoff at in terms of some of the most dominant teams in the regular season, and in Florida's case, in the playoffs, in the Atlantic Division. So a really fantastic debut here for Axel Sandin-Pellikka, whose mobility, I think, is really starting to create more and more advantages on the defensive side of the puck, and not just offensively. And on top of that, yeah, he's a -3 so far to start his career, but show me a young defenseman that hasn't had a bit of a sobering reality check when they've hit the NHL for the first time. It's the case here. It's the case basically for everybody. But I still think that with Sandin-Pellikka, you have a player that is going to be like the ideal like second pairing offensive driver behind Mo Seider down the right side long term, especially if you pair him with a guy like Simon Edvinsson or one of the other big, physically engaged left shot defensemen there in the Red Wings system. They have a lot of those coming through the ranks. So I think that ASP is in a great position to succeed, and he's already getting minutes here. He's already been playing 18 to 22 minutes a night, really getting that top four deployment. And I think that it's only a matter of time before the offense kind of follows here. Then at number 9 in our rankings, we have Arseni Gritsyuk of the New Jersey Devils, who's gotten off to a flying start as the new right winger in New Jersey, a player who has really impressed in the KHL for a number of years already. He already put up 4 consecutive seasons where he was at an impressive level of production in the KHL. Last season had 44 points, including 17 goals in 49 games. Really grew as a playmaker in particular last season. And that's translated over to the NHL here to start the campaign with 3 assists through 4 games. And he's been doing that while playing bottom 6 minutes almost exclusively. He played just under 10 in his debut and followed that up with 13 minutes, 14 minutes, and 10 minutes once again. He logged 2 assists in that 5-3 victory against the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's just gotten involved, and I think he's a player that, with his level of skill, with his ability to find his way onto the score sheet, but more than anything, I think his adaptability to any situation, and also a pretty clear improvement game to game from what I've seen in terms of his defensive scanning and engagement, which is still not the strongest part of his overall game. To see him taking steps in that regard, I think is really promising. So Arseni Gritsyuk comes in here at number 9. And to wrap up the top 10, we're heading back to the Montreal Canadiens as Oliver Kapanen has 3 goals in 5 games to start the season here. He did play last season. He got into 18 games with the Habs, including 2 assists. Also played in the playoffs in that series against the Washington Capitals. In between that, he was loaned out to the SHL with Timrå, where he scored 15 goals and 35 points in 36 games. And the offense is not why you value Oliver Kapanen. You value him because he's able to win you possession, whether that be through being reliable in the faceoff circle and adaptable in the faceoff circle. He's one of the few NHL players that is able to take faceoffs on his offhand, which basically means reversing his stick in order to take left side draws as a right shot forward, which he did to win a couple faceoffs as well in the most recent game against the Nashville Predators. And he also scored in that game off of his own rebound. He just gets to the net. He keeps hammering away at pucks. Playing on a line with Ivan Demidov certainly does not hurt his chances at getting the puck to the back of the net. And this goal-scoring pace where he's currently on pace for 49 goals and 0 assists this season, that's not going to keep going. But what I think is really impressive is that he's been showing a real level of acumen to get into those dangerous positions. He's not going to finish at this rate all season long, but his ability to find those spaces, get there, and also contribute on the defensive side of the puck. He's really tough to play against. He's strong on the forecheck. He's physical. And in the defensive zone, I think he's gotten more and more comfortable at keeping up with his reads and really applying tight pressure against his markers. So a guy that I think has been really valuable for the Habs, playing about 12 minutes a night here so far this season. He's played a pretty big role at getting them on the score sheet in 3 separate games here early in the campaign. But while that does wrap up our top 10, we have one more player that I couldn't not give a shout out to. I mean, of course, you have more rookies and some guys that we're going to just talk about here later on in the week, guys like Ben Kindle and Harrison Brunick, I want to give shout outs to as well. But the guy that we really, really have to give a little bit of merit to here, going back to the Detroit Red Wings, Emmitt Finnie, a player that was drafted in the 7th round just 2 years ago, who only turned 20 years old in late June of this summer. And after a really, really fantastic season as the captain of the Kamloops Blazers last year, where he put up 84 points and 37 goals in 55 games, he's just stepped into a top line role with the Detroit Red Wings at even strength. I think the overall time on ice is closer to middle 6 minutes in terms of like averaging around 14 minutes a night here so far this season. But he's such an engaged player. He gets to the middle of the ice. He's difficult to play against physically. He keeps his head on a swivel. He's intelligent. He thinks quickly. He's able to support high-end players very effectively, make their lives easier, and get to the places where they expect their line mate to get to. And I think that he's just kind of filled that hole just really, really impressively so far this season. He's had 2 assists in those 4 games with the Red Wings, both coming in separate games against the Toronto Maple Leafs. And on top of that, he's also been a +4 to start the season. I've used plus minus more in this episode than I think I have at any point ever in my podcasting career. But I think in terms of just showing how these prospects are adapting and how they're kind of bending the ice in their team's favor to start the season in a small sample size, it can be helpful to kind of just get some notes on it, even if it's not something to draw massive conclusions from. But Emmitt Finnie has really impressed me. I think Red Wings fans are rightfully excited about this player, and he's already becoming a bit of a fan favorite for the underdog story that he embodies. But that is it for today's episode. Let me know what your thoughts are on this top 10 ranking, and maybe more importantly about the players I'm talking about and what you think that they might achieve at year's end, because top 10 ranking with a 4-game sample size, that's going to shift so quickly. But yeah, these players are so exciting. There's a lot of young talent being infused into the National Hockey League. I'd love to hear your thoughts on players that might still get sent back down to juniors after a 9-game trial. You might see a couple, maybe one of these guys, 2 of these guys sent back down. But I think overall, these players are here to stay. We already saw Braden Coots get sent back to the WHL by the Vancouver Canucks because I believe he had like an 8% expected goals for share through 3 games. I think at that point, you should probably be going back to junior hockey to just gain back confidence, have the more puck touches, grow your game, expand what you're able to do, and then come back stronger next season, because Coots has every single element to be a killer in a middle 6 role for the Canucks as soon as next season. But yeah, let me know your thoughts if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please do make sure to make us your first listen of the day. It's always greatly appreciated. And for your second listen, head on over to Locked On Fantasy Hockey, where Flip and Steele break down everything that you need to know to build yourself a competitive and sustainable fantasy roster. That's all from me today. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I'm your host, Sebastian High, and I hope to catch you listening again very, very soon.